Day 9 of the invasion. We're going to take a look at the situation in the south of Ukraine, the most significant development, the bombing of the nuclear power station at Zaporizhzhia. Michael Clarke, our defence analyst, your best analysis of how that happened.
Well, I think the strategic explanation might be that President Putin wanted to frighten everybody. I think the real explanation, it was probably actually strategic stupidity on the part of local forces. It usually turns out to be that in this sort of case.
That is worrying, given that we've got a second power station perhaps we should be aware of close to Russian forces.
Yeah, and the whole front is now moving towards the west. So we're thinking about what happens next in Odessa and around that part of the Black Sea coast of Ukraine.
So let's take a look at that. Let's zoom in on this area around Odessa. Significant at the moment, no red lines, means no Russian control at the moment. But how is that going to play out? And tell us also about Chornomorsk, the commercial port.
Yes, Odessa is the historic port. Chornomorsk is the commercial port, existed since the 1950s. Since then, those two ports account for about 70% of all of the Black Sea trade of Ukraine. If they're taken by the Russians, which one assumes eventually they will be, then that's pretty bad news for Ukraine's economy.
And you expect the forces to move towards Odessa?
It looks as if they will. They're fighting at the moment at Mykolaiv. The Russians have been repelled once at Mykolaiv in the last 24 hours, but I'm sure that they will eventually have to give ground there at some point.
And there are assets at sea as part of this operation, we think?
Yes, the Russians have got assault ships at sea, they've got a maritime force, so one would expect that when the ground troops are ready to attack Odessa, that the troops at sea will probably join them in a maritime assault.
Let's look quickly at the battle for Kiev. We have reports earlier today, of renewed hostilities at Hostomel. Explain the significance strategically of this airfield.
Yes, the Russians tried to take Hostomel Airfield in the early stage of the conflict with an airborne assault, and it didn't work. They got beaten back. Hostomel is a really important strategic asset because if you hold Hostomel Airfield, you can bring troops into it much more easily than bringing them by road, and you can use Hostomel Airfield to attack Kiev itself from the air. So both for defence and the attack on Kiev, Hostomel Airfield is a very important strategic asset.
Thank you, Michael. So, as we go into the second weekend of the invasion, the fate of key strategic assets around Kiev still up in the air, and a long haul ahead for both the Russian invading force and, perhaps more importantly, those on the ground in Ukraine.